Hello and what is going on today, guys? Tomcat here, and today we're going to be talking about 10 reasons why I think the LEGO expansion is the best expansion that they have made for Forza Horizon 4, and as a matter of fact, for a Forza game in general. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. Now, the first thing I want to touch on real quick is jumps. Now, I know that's kind of like a weirdly basic thing to have as my first point, but number one is jumps. The jumps are huge, they're fun, they shoot you across the map for they shoot you across the map for ridiculous distances, way more than you would ever be able to do on Fortune Island or on the mainland or wherever. And I think they add a dynamic of very, very similar to Hot Wheels, which is Hot Wheels comes in right behind LEGO for me, but it adds a similar dynamic to the Hot Wheels expansion where you feel like you almost feel like the cars are not necessarily weightless, but you feel like you can sort of bend gravity. And when you have that feeling of having that much control over the environment at hand, it makes you feel, not only does it make you feel really good and it makes you feel really involved in the game, but it also kind of makes you feel like you can do whatever you want. And I think that that is the feel that they were trying to go for here. So with that being said, I'm not leaving the sand dunes out when I talk about jumps, because there's a lot of, the booster ramps and stuff like that, but there's also a lot of natural jumps around this map that they engineered in really, really good ways to make everything flow smoothly. So jumps in general are a massive, massive thing for me, and it's just a simple thing, but it comes in at number one on this list. Now, not number one in terms of like the top thing, but number one is in number one on the list. Now, number two is map layout. I really like what they did with the map layout. I think the map is laid out really, really well. There's a definitive section for every single type of gameplay, right? So if you want off-road, you want dunes, you want a lot of jumps, you literally directly go to the desert. Like, if you have nothing unlocked, but you look at it on the map and you go, I want to go off-roading, I want jumps, you can look at it and know exactly where to go. If you want to go to a racetrack, you've got the racetrack right up at the top of the map. If you want a, more of like a rally type feel, you can go down to the bottom right-hand corner of the map. Like, everything is laid out super easily and super, I'm almost trying to think of the word I want to use here. Just everything is smooth to get to and to figure out where you are. You never feel lost on this map. And I know that some people are going to say, well, that's because it's not big enough. And I kind of disagree. I think that, if we were talking about like a mainland map or a main game map, then yeah, of course it would be way too small. But for an expansion, I think it's the perfect size because you memorize the map really quick and there's a really low chance of getting lost, which is great because, getting lost is never fun when you're trying to hang out with your friends and drive cars with your friends. Now, getting lost in an open world game is part of the exploration. However, like I said before, you wouldn't want to get lost on the LEGO map. Now, number three is creativity. And when I say creativity, I mean creativity on the end of the developers, because this was something a lot more creative than things that they've done in the past, in my opinion. A lot of the stuff they've done in the past, aside from Hot Wheels is an exception here, but a lot of the expansions they've done in the past were things like, we've had all the way back to Horizon 1, we had the original Horizon Rally expansion, we had Fortune Island, we've had Storm Island back in Horizon 2, and these were all things that they were amplifications of gameplay dynamics that were already in the game to begin with, or they were community requested things. Like, for example, on Fortune Island, we got the longest drift road or longest drift zone in a Horizon game pretty much ever. So They do really take that stuff into account, and they definitely do listen to it, but I think that the LEGO map really allowed them to kind of get a little bit creative and show what they can really do when it comes to being creative with a game. Now, the fourth thing is a closed racetrack in a Horizon map. That is huge, and I know I've talked about this in a lot of videos, but it's definitely making this list, because the reason why it makes this list is because other open world games like The Crew, for example, have always had multiple closed course racetracks in the game. I mean, even games like GTA have had closed course racetracks in their open world games, and I've always felt like it was something that was missing from the Horizon series. And of course, partially it makes sense because Forza Motorsport exists, and it's over here, and it's like, hey bro, we got racetracks. And Horizon's like, cool, we'll stick to open road. But if they were to mix them, I feel like it could actually be really successful. So with that being said, I think the racetrack in the map is probably one of the standout features, and it definitely is worthy of making this list of these top 10 things. Now, number 5, and a lot of people are going to have varying opinions about this, but it introduces new players to Forza, right? So when the LEGO expansion was announced, a lot of people were complaining that it was just going to bring this massive, like, wave of, you know, little kids that were going to, you know, quote unquote, like, ruin public lobbies and like all this kind of stuff. But to be fair, I think there's a little bit of a, I mean, yeah, sometimes, you know, like, say if you're wanting to have like a chill car meet with friends, and then somebody comes along in a Bugatti Chiron and, you know, slams into all of you, that's annoying. But if he's not in your convoy, he can't do that. So at the end of the day, I feel like that's almost a non-issue, because it brings people into the game that were interested in LEGO anyway, and especially if they're younger, this could be their gateway to getting into cars, and that it could be their gateway for discovering a passion for cars that they didn't know they even had. So I think that the fact that it brings new players, especially young players, into the game is a good thing. Now, number six is that this is a very like weird kind of almost like nerdy thing for me, but it has a collectible system that resembles, the collectible system feels like collecting things in the old LEGO games that I used to play as a little kid. I mean, we're talking about like LEGO Star Wars, LEGO Indiana Jones, like things like that. There's something about playing those games as a kid and then moving over to this Forza expansion now that's like, oh my god, I went around to collect LEGO bricks in a fantasy world in this game over here when I was like 10. You know what I mean? And then now I'm over here and I could do that in Forza. And of course, if you don't want to do it, you can go back to the mainland, or you can go over to Fortune Island, or whatever it is you want to do. But I think they did a really good job making the collectibles LEGO centric. Now, number seven is I'm kind of like, you know, what I put down on my list is like narrative, but to be honest, like, I loved how there was sort of a loose narrative on explaining why the Legos were there and, you know, what the Horizon Festival was doing with them, and of course the little Horizon story. But at the same time, I love how they left it open. You know what I mean? They left it open to you, as they usually do. I mean, the Horizon series kind of went from being a little bit more of a campaign-style game that was a little bit of a story up to now, where it's pretty much you create your own thing. And some people like that, some people don't. But I like how they didn't just blast you out into a LEGO world and were like, here's some Legos, have fun. But they were like, okay, so let's explain to them why they're here in relation to the Horizon Festival, so it makes sense. Let's then make a Horizon story about proving to people that these Legos actually are here and they work and they're life-size. And I think that was one of the coolest things that they did in terms of like sort of bringing a little bit of a narrative into it. Now, number 8 is creating a world that doesn't take itself too seriously. The fact that they created a world that is fun to be in, fun to drive around in, but at the same time also doesn't take itself too seriously is probably the best thing about this whole expansion, because you never feel like, oh man, that road could have been a little tighter, or this apex could have been a little, like, you know, I could have found this apex over here, I could have found it over there. You don't really stress out about that kind of stuff because, you know, there's a red and yellow Lego tree over there. That's one of the biggest things that to me stands out about it, because they were able to make a beautiful, beautiful map that flows super well without having it feel like it took itself too seriously. So that is definitely making this list. Now, number 9, it brings back the feel of the old expansions. Now, let me elaborate a little bit on what I mean by that. The old expansions, when I say the old expansions, I'm talking about like Horizon Rally. Like, we're going all the way back to Horizon 1 here. Now, literally what they did for that was they took the routes that were in the game already and redid them in dirt and gravel with massive dips and jumps. And, you know, was it maybe the most original thing? Maybe not, but was it one of the coolest things? Because literally you were already used to these routes, but like all of a sudden it's got a massive freaking jump in it. You know, like that was creative, and I feel like maybe a little bit of the creativity didn't go away, but it sort of like went in a different direction for a little while. But I think this brought it back to that feel. And the biggest thing, and number 10, the last thing on the list, is just thinking outside of the box in general. Now, I know a lot of people are not happy still with the LEGO expansion. They're like, you know, oh, it's dumb, it's stupid, we need to have more drift-centric stuff, blah, 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 blah. But Horizon 4 has showed so much attention overall to drifters that I feel like I almost, and I love drifting, right? Like I think it's a massive part of the game, but at the same time, I feel like it also needs to be said that sometimes the game needs a little bit of a refresh, and I think that was one of the best outside-the-box ways to refresh the game. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to click that like button. Tell me in the comment section below what you guys thought of it. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.